Okay, so this is going to be Intermediate Algebra Lesson 6.2. It is very similar to 6.1 in that where we multiplied and divided, this one we're going to add and subtract rational expressions. So let's get started. There's only 3 lessons left after this one, so that is super exciting. What did I just share? Okay, let's change that. All right. So when we're doing these, we have to check our denominators and make sure our denominators are the same. If they're not the same, we can't use it. So, well, if they're not the same, we have to find the common denominator. So on this one, we have y subtract 6 and y subtract 6. Since the denominator is the same on both of them, we go ahead and subtract our numerators. So we'd have y plus 2 subtract y minus 3. This is the big thing that people are going to forget. We're subtracting this, and when we subtract that binomial, we are going to change it to y plus 2 subtract y plus 3, because subtract the negative. And then y subtract y would be 0, 2 plus 3 would be 5. Now, this is just our numerator. And then our denominator is still going to be that same y minus 6. So our answer is 5 over y subtract 6. Next one, we see if we have the same denominator, x times z squared, x times z squared. So we're going to have x z squared. Then 7 subtract 11, negative 4. So I'm going to put my negative here. Negative 4 over x z squared. Check our denominator, x plus 5, x plus 5. It's the same, so we keep that. And then we'd have combine our numerator, x squared subtract 25. This isn't our answer though, because this is the difference of 2 squares. So I'd have x subtract 5 times x plus 5 over x plus 5. And what we learned in our last one is we could simplify this and we'd be left with just x subtract 5. And that would be our answer. I'll try not to jump the gun again. All right, so here we have x squared subtract 12x plus 35, and that's the same. So our denominator is going to be that. But let's go ahead and factor this. So I have x and x. Factors of 35 that add to get 12 would be 7 and 5. So I have 7 and 5. And they'd both be subtract because that's a subtract there. Okay, then we'd have 3x subtract 10 plus 3 subtract 2x. So 3x subtract 2x would be x. Negative 10 plus 3 would be subtract 7. So x subtract 7 over x subtract 5. Then we would reduce. Then we'd be left with 1 over x subtract 5. Find the least common denominator of the rational expression in the list. So we're switching gears. They had the same denominator. Right here, we got to find our common denominator. And remember, how's this? What is this? We're going to multiply them. Because if we were finding the common denominator of just 2 and 5, we'd do their multiples. But since this one has an x, we do 2 times 5x to get 10x. Here, to find this least common denominator, it's going to be both of them together. So we'd have x plus 7 times x minus 7. And it says type it in factored form, so don't actually multiply them. Just leave that. Find the least common denominator of the rational expression. Type your answer in factored form. So on this, we're just looking at the denominators. So I'm going to factor the bottom. So I'd have 6 and x plus 5. Because I factored a 6 out of x plus 30. And I'm going to multiply it by 5. 5 comes out of this. 5 goes into 5x one time. 5 goes into 48 times. And then I'd multiply these two numbers. So 6 times 5 is 30. Have x plus 5 times x minus 8. Find the least common denominator of the rational expressions. So u squared subtract v squared. That's the difference of two squares. So we'd have u subtract v times u plus v. Then here we have u squared subtract 2uv plus v squared. So we have to factor that one. And I'll do this, u squared subtract v squared. U's and v's are not great. U squared subtract 2uv plus v squared. So factors of 1 that add to get 2. So I'd have u subtract v times u subtract v. Alright, since they both share a u subtract v, I don't have to write it 3 times. But I'm going to have these two are shared. So I'm going to have that one once. I don't have really enough room to write this here. So we have u subtract v. And then we'd have another u subtract v because we have to have both of these. So I'm going to put a square here and then a u plus v. But you could still write this u subtract v, u subtract v, u plus v. You don't have to write the square on it. I just didn't have room to write it all there multiple times. Okay, now then we're going to problems where we have to find the common denominator and then solve it. So here our common denominator, we have a v in both of them. So our common denominator is going to be 21v. Because 3 times 7 is 21. And we have to have that common denominator. We're not going to have a v squared though, because then we're adding an extra v in it and it reduces out anyway if we did do that. So this is 7v. So to make 7v be 21, I have to multiply this 3 by 3. So I'd have 3 times 3 here. Plus 8 times, I have 3v here. I need 3v to look like 21v. So I'm going to do 3v times 7. So 8 times 7 here. So I'd have 9 plus 8 times 7 is 56. Which is 65. And it'd be over 21b. Does that reduce any? 65 divisible by 3? No. So we'd have 65 over 21b. All right, so we got to find our common denominator on this one. So you're going to have to find your common denominator or check always check. So we have a y squared, so now I'm going to have a y squared. And 4 times 9, what's the lowest? The least common multiple of 9 and 4, I think it's going to be 36. Y squared. So now I have 4 times 9 times 9y squared, and I need it to look like 36y squared, so I multiplied this by 4, so 4 times 4. Now 4y has to look like 36y. And if you're ever confused on this, just divide. 36 divided by 4 is 9. Y squared divided by y, we'd still have a y. So I'd have 16 subtract 45y. I can't combine these because this one doesn't have a y, so this is all going to go over. And then is there a number that goes into all of these? 9 don't go into 16. 4 don't go into 45. 5 don't go into, I think that's going to be it. Okay. On this one, our common denominator is going to be x subtract 6 times x plus 7. This x subtract 6, this is one of those shared things, so I don't have to put 2 of these because there's one already here. Okay, so this is missing this x plus 7. So I'm going to do 1 times x plus 7. Subtract. This is the common denominator, so I don't have to multiply this one by anything. So I'm just going to have 31 subtract 3x. But remember, this would have been in parentheses, so this sign, we are going to change it before we combine like terms. So I have x plus 3x, so we'd have 4x. 7 subtract 31. Negative 24. And then I can simplify this because I can factor out a 4 to have x subtract 6, and this is over. That simplifies, reduces to 4 over x plus 7. Okay, our common denominator on this one will be 4 subtract x times x subtract 4. Whatever it's missing is what we multiply by. So x plus 3 was over 4 subtract x. So I'm going to have x plus 3 times x minus 4 plus 3. And this was over x minus 4, so I need to multiply by the one it's missing. Someone said before, and I'm okay with this on these, but like it won't work out on these ones. We multiply by what it, like across. So I take my x minus 4 times this, and this times this. It works on them, but like on this one, it wouldn't have worked because I didn't need to multiply by 5 by 9y squared or 4 by 4y. That was just more than we needed. X times x is x squared. Subtract 4x plus 3x, subtract 12 plus 12, subtract 3x. Okay, I'll use my highlighter since that's what I've been using. Positive 3x, negative 12, positive 12. So I'm left with x squared, subtract 4x. I'm going to factor out an x. So I'd have x subtract 4. Now I'm going to bring in my denominator. So I'd have 4 subtract x times x subtract 4. So the answer is going to be x over 4 subtract x. Okay, so we got to find our common denominator first. And it's going to be x subtract 3 times 3 subtract x. So I'm going to have 5 times 3 subtract x plus x plus 4 times x minus 3. So 15 subtract 5x plus x squared subtract 3x plus 4x subtract 12. We're going to combine our like terms here. So we have x squared. Then we have negative 5, negative 3, and 4. So negative 8 plus 4 would be negative 4x. 15 subtract 12 would be positive 3. Let's go ahead and factor this. So I'd have an x minus 3 times x minus 1 over x minus 3 times 3 subtract x. Reduce. And we're left with x subtract 1 over 3 subtract x. I'm just glad I got all this space on this one. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have to do is find our common denominator. And in order to find our common denominator, we first have to factor. So factors of 3 that add to get 4 would be 4 and 1. It's actually, these are the same things, so except with y. So y subtract 3 times y subtract 1 would be this one factored. And this is y squared subtract 9, which is the difference of 2 squareds. So y subtract 3 times y plus 3. So they share this one. And then we got, so let's do y minus 1 times y minus 3 times y plus 3. Okay, so this one here, this y plus 5 is over y minus 3 and y minus 1. So I'm going to have to do, where do I want to do this? Y plus 5 times y plus 3 subtract. And I'm going to bracket that 5. And then this was over y minus 3 and y plus 3, so I need this one. And then we'll multiply this out. So I'd have y squared plus 3y plus 5y plus 15 subtract 5y. Negative times negative would be plus 5. Okay, combine our like terms. So we have y squared 5. These cancel. Plus 3y plus 20. There's no factors of 20 that are going to add to get 3. It's all going to be way bigger than that. So our answer is going to be y squared plus 3y plus 20 over y subtract 1 times y subtract 3 times y plus 3. I meant to break that into 2 videos. I hope this isn't too long. I'm sorry if it is, but we only got 3 more lessons now, y'all.